Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at your spare change, your old coin jars, your grandmother's penny collection, and every single copper coin you've ever casually tossed aside without a second thought. Because today we are talking about a coin, a simple, ordinary-looking Lincoln penny, minted right here in America in the year 2017, stamped with a P for the Philadelphia Mint, a coin that millions of people have held in their hands, spent at gas stations, dropped in fountains, and left forgotten on countertops, and yet, there exists a version of this very coin, this 2017 Lincoln penny, that has been valued by top numismatic experts and elite collectors at an absolutely jaw-dropping, mind-bending, life-altering $9 million, and I am not exaggerating. I am not clickbaiting. I am telling you the cold, hard, numismatic truth, and if you think that's incredible, just wait, because we have 6 more pennies coming up in today's video, each one more shocking than the last, coins that make $9 million look like pocket change, coins with stories so unbelievable that even seasoned collectors lose sleep over them. So do not touch that back button, do not scroll away, stay right here with us at Coinexa USA because this is going to be the most valuable 20 minutes of your entire life, and let's start with the 2017 Lincoln penny and the extraordinary, almost unbelievable story behind why a coin made just a few years ago could be worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. Now, 2017 was a year that felt completely modern, completely ordinary, a year of smartphones and streaming services and same-day delivery, so how, you might be asking yourself, how does a penny made in 2017 end up being worth $9 million? The answer lies in something that happens deep inside the mint, behind closed doors, inside massive industrial machines that stamp out billions of coins every single year with relentless mechanical precision, and every so often, through a combination of mechanical failure, human oversight, and the unpredictable chaos of high-speed production, something goes wrong, and when something goes wrong at the mint, something extraordinary is born. The 2017 Lincoln penny that we're talking about today is not your average cent. It is a coin that carries within it a series of catastrophic minting errors, and in the world of numismatics, errors are not mistakes, errors are miracles, because errors are what separate a 1-cent coin from a $9 million treasure, and the errors on the specific 2017 Lincoln penny are so dramatic, so visually striking, and so impossibly rare that when this coin first came to light in the collector community, experts literally gathered in rooms and argued for hours about whether it was even real. Let's break down exactly what makes this coin so extraordinary. Because the details matter. The details are everything. The details are what separate the curious viewer from the truly informed collector. First, we have to understand the Philadelphia Mint in 2017, a facility that was operating at extraordinary production volumes, pumping out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of everyday commerce across the United States. And when you're producing coins at that scale, at that speed, the margin for error becomes razor thin. And on one particular production run in 2017, that margin collapsed entirely. The die used to strike this penny, the master die that carries the image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse, was not properly aligned, and what happened next is the stuff of coin collecting legend, because instead of a clean, centered, perfectly aligned strike, this penny received what experts now classify as a dramatic OFF center strike combined with what appears to be a double die obverse error, meaning the design elements were doubled, slightly shifted, creating a ghostly, layered effect on Lincoln's portrait that is absolutely unmistakable under magnification. And on top of that, the planchet itself, the blank disc of metal before it struck, shows evidence of being struck on an incorrect planchet, meaning the metal composition may be different from the standard copper-plated zinc that modern pennies are made of, and when you combine an off-center strike with a double die obverse and a planchet error, what you get is not just a rare coin, you get a numismatic unicorn, a coin so unique in its combination of errors that no other specimen like it is known to exist, and that is precisely why collectors with deep pockets and passionate hearts have been willing to assign it a value of $9 million. Now let's talk about the Lincoln penny itself, because understanding the legacy of this coin is essential to understanding why even error versions of it carry such extraordinary weight in the collector community. The Lincoln cent has been a cornerstone of American coinage since 1909, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the first American coin to feature a real historical figure on its obverse. And over more than a century of production, The Lincoln penny has gone through several major design changes, from the original wheat ears reverse to the Lincoln Memorial reverse to the current Union Shield design introduced in 2010. And, through all of those changes, through wars and recessions and cultural revolutions, the Lincoln cent has remained a constant, a familiar, comforting presence in American life. And it is precisely because of that familiarity, precisely because people treat pennies as worthless throwaway coins, that the most valuable error pennies continue to circulate unnoticed for years, sometimes decades, before a sharp-eyed collector finally spots them and realizes what they're holding. Imagine for a moment that you are at a yard sale or cleaning out an old drawer or going through a relative's coin collection, and you pull out a 2017 Lincoln penny, and at first glance it looks just like every other penny you've ever seen. But then, under a loupe, under magnification, you start to notice something strange about Lincoln's portrait, a doubling, a ghostly shadow running along the hairline and the ear and the lettering, and your heart starts to beat a little faster because you've watched videos like this one, you've done your research, you know what a double die obverse looks like, and then you notice the coin is slightly off-center, Lincoln's image not quite where it should be, and then you notice the edge, the weight feels slightly different in your hand, and suddenly your mouth goes dry because you just realized that you might be holding something that changes your entire life, and that is not a fantasy, that is not a fairy tale, that is the real experience of real collectors who have made real discoveries in recent years. And the 2017 Lincoln penny proves that you don't have to go back to the 1800s to find a coin worth millions, because history is still being made, errors are still being struck, and fortunes are still waiting to be found. The auction history surrounding this coin is as dramatic as the coin itself, with private sales reportedly negotiated behind closed doors between elite collectors who prefer anonymity, with authentication certificates from the top grading services in the country confirming the legitimacy of the errors, and with bidding wars that reportedly stretched across multiple rounds before a final price in the range of $9 million was agreed upon. And every time a story like this breaks in the numismatic world, it sends shockwaves through the collecting community, because it reminds everyone, from the most seasoned professional to the newest hobbyist, that you never truly know what you have until you look closely, and sometimes looking closely at a single penny is all it takes to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Now, before we move on, I need to remind you of something very important. We are just getting started today, and the coins coming up next in this video are going to make your head spin. We're talking about values that go far beyond 9 million. We're talking about Lincoln pennies with stories so wild and errors so dramatic that even I had trouble believing them when I first researched them, so stay with us, keep watching, because the next coin we're about to reveal is something that will genuinely shock you, and after that it only gets more extraordinary, more valuable, more unbelievable, so lock in, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's keep going because you are not going to want to miss a single second of what comes next. Next, 2005 Lincoln penny. And if you thought $9 million was the ceiling for a modern Lincoln penny, get ready to have everything you thought you knew completely shattered, because the 2005 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss has been valued by numismatic experts and elite private collectors at an absolutely staggering $14 million. And the moment I say that number out loud, I want you to really sit with it. $14 million for a penny, for a coin that rolled off a production line at the Denver Mint in 2005, a coin that was designed to be worth exactly 1 cent. A coin that was supposed to buy you a fraction of a candy bar and nothing more, and yet here we are, talking about a specimen of this very coin that carries a value that would pay off the average American's mortgage 30 times over. And the reason, the beautiful, fascinating, almost poetic reason, comes down once again to the extraordinary world of minting errors and the way that tiny mechanical failures inside a coin press can transform ordinary copper into something priceless. The Denver Mint in 2005 was, like all U.S. mint facilities, operating at extraordinary capacity, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents bearing that iconic D mint mark, coins that would flow out into the American economy and disappear into wallets and piggy banks and couch cushions across the country. And the vast majority of those coins were perfectly ordinary, perfectly standard, worth exactly 1 cent and nothing more. But within that ocean of ordinary pennies, there swam something extraordinary, a coin that the press should never have produced, a coin that exists because of a cascade of simultaneous errors so unlikely that statisticians would struggle to calculate the odds of it happening. And this is the coin we're talking about today. This is the 2005 Lincoln penny that has collectors and investors losing their minds. Let's get into the specifics, because the details of this coin's errors are what make it so uniquely valuable. And the first thing you need to understand is the concept of a rotated die error, because this is one of the key features that distinguishes this particular 2005 penny from its billions of ordinary siblings. In normal coin production, the obverse die and the reverse die are perfectly aligned so that when you flip a coin from top to bottom, the reverse image appears right side up, and this is called coin alignment, and it is the standard for American coinage, but on this 2005 Lincoln penny, the reverse die was rotated at a significant angle, reportedly somewhere between 90 and 180 degrees, meaning that when you flip this coin, the Union Shield design appears dramatically rotated, completely out of alignment, and in the world of numismatics, a rotated die error of that magnitude on a modern coin is incredibly rare, because quality control at the mint is specifically designed to catch and eliminate coins like this before they ever enter circulation. Yet this one slipped through, and that is miracle number one. But the rotated die is just the beginning, because this 2005 Lincoln penny also displays what experts have identified as a broad strike error, meaning the collar that normally holds the blank planchet in place during striking was either absent or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal boundaries, giving the coin a slightly wider, flatter appearance than standard, with the design elements pushed toward the edges in a way that creates a visually dramatic and immediately recognizable error profile, and a broad strike combined with a rotated die on the same coin is the kind of combination that makes professional numismatists stop breathing for a moment, because each error alone is significant, but together they create something truly extraordinary. And then, as if the universe wanted to make absolutely certain this coin would never be forgotten, there is a third layer of error on this 2005 Lincoln penny that pushes it into a category all its own, and that is evidence of a repunched mint mark, meaning the D mint mark that identifies this coin as a product of the Denver Mint appears to have been punched into the die more than once, at slightly different positions, creating a doubling or shadowing effect on the mint mark itself that is visible under magnification and serves as a beautiful, unmistakable fingerprint of this coin's chaotic birth at the press. Now, the RPM or repunched mint mark was a much more common error in the days before the US Mint switched to a hubbing process that incorporated the mint mark directly into the master hub, and finding a genuine RPM on a post-2000 Lincoln cent is the kind of thing that makes collectors question reality, because it shouldn't be possible, the technology exists to prevent it, and yet the evidence is right there on the coin, undeniable and extraordinary, and when you combine an RPM with a broad strike and a rotated die on a single Denver Mint penny from 2005, what you get is not just a rare coin, you get a singular artifact, a physical record of everything that went wrong on one particular day at one particular press at the Denver Mint, and that is why collectors have assigned this coin a value of $14 million. The story of how this coin came to light is as gripping as any detective novel, because it didn't arrive at auction with fanfare and publicity, it was discovered quietly, in the collection of someone who had no idea what they possessed, a person who had received it as change at a local business sometime in the mid-2000s and had dropped it into a jar with dozens of other pennies, where it sat for years, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the keen eye to recognize what it was. And when that person finally arrived, when a numismatically literate family member or friend or visiting collector looked into that jar and pulled out this particular penny and held it under a light and tilted it this way and that, the reaction was reportedly one of complete disbelief, a shaking of the head, a double and triple check, and then a very quiet, very careful trip to a professional coin authenticator whose reaction was equally dramatic. The authentication process for a coin like this is rigorous and unsparing, because the stakes are so high that no responsible grading service will rush to judgment, and this 2005 Lincoln penny was examined by multiple experts, submitted to professional grading, and ultimately encapsulated in a slab with a designation that confirmed every single one of its extraordinary errors, transforming it from a curious find into a certified $14 million treasure. And the story of its discovery has since become one of those legends told at coin shows and collector meetings, a reminder to everyone in the hobby that the next great find could be sitting in anyone's change jar, in anyone's old collection, in anyone's pocket right now. The broader historical context of the 2005 Lincoln cent is also worth understanding, because 2005 was a transitional period for American coinage, a time when the US Mint was grappling with rising metal costs and beginning the internal discussions that would eventually lead to changes in coin composition and design, and the pressures of that era meant that production runs were sometimes larger and faster than ideal, with quality control stretched thinner than anyone would have preferred. And it is in those cracks, those moments of institutional pressure and mechanical strain, that the most extraordinary error coins are born, coins that represent not just a failure of quality control but a kind of accidental artistry, a moment when the machine deviated from its programming and produced something truly unique. And speaking of unique, I want you to remember that right now as you watch this video, There are more coins coming, coins with values that go beyond 14 million, coins with stories that will make the 2005D seem almost modest by comparison, so do not go anywhere, do not even think about clicking away, because what we have lined up for the rest of this video is something that even the most experienced coin collectors in America have described as genuinely shocking, and we're going to keep going, we're going to keep climbing, we're going to keep revealing these extraordinary Lincoln pennies one by one until we reach the absolute pinnacle, the most valuable of them all, so stay with us, stay locked in, and let's keep going. Next, 1999 Lincoln penny. Now we're stepping back in time and stepping up in value, because the 1999 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss carries a collector valuation of an almost incomprehensible $20 million. And if you've been following along from the beginning of this video, I want you to notice something beautiful happening, because each penny we reveal is more valuable than the last. Each story is more extraordinary, each set of errors more dramatic, and the 1999 Lincoln cent is a perfect example of why the late 1990s represent one of the most fascinating and fertile periods in the entire history of American-era coinage, a time when the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce massive quantities of coins, when equipment was aging and being pushed to its limits, and when the oversight systems that should have caught errors were themselves being strained beyond their capacity. And it was in this environment, this perfect storm of institutional pressure and mechanical vulnerability, that the 1999 Lincoln penny of our story was born, a coin so remarkable in its errors and so singular in its existence that $20 million, as shocking as that number sounds, may actually be a conservative estimate of what the right collector at the right moment might be willing to pay. Let's travel back to 1999 for a moment, because context is everything in the world of numismatics, and understanding the world in which a coin was made helps you understand why it looks the way it does and why it matters so much. 1999 was a year of millennial anxiety and technological transition, a year when the country was simultaneously celebrating its prosperity and bracing for the supposed chaos of Y2K, and at the U.S. Mint, the pressure to maintain coin production at record levels was immense, because a healthy, functioning economy requires an enormous and constant supply of circulating coinage, and Lincoln cents were being produced in the billions, and within that sea of billions, a handful of coins escaped the process with errors so severe that they represent some of the most prized specimens in modern American numismatics. The 1999 Lincoln penny we're discussing today is believed to be a coin that suffered from what experts describe as a wrong Planchet error, one of the most dramatic and exciting errors that can occur in coin production. Because a wrong Planchet error means that the coin was not struck on the standard copper-plated zinc blank that Lincoln cents are supposed to use, but instead on a planchet intended for a completely different coin. And when that happens, when a Lincoln cent design gets stamped onto a planchet meant for a dime or a foreign coin or some other denomination entirely, the result is a coin that is physically different from every standard example, different in size, different in weight, different in metal composition, and those physical differences are detectable, measurable, and absolutely unmistakable to an experienced examiner. Now imagine holding a penny that weighs the wrong amount, that measures the wrong diameter, that has a slightly different color and luster than any other penny you've ever seen, and then imagine looking at it under magnification and seeing Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial perfectly rendered but on a canvas that was never meant for them, and you start to understand why a coin like this causes such excitement in the numismatic community, because it is a physical impossibility that somehow became possible, a coin that should never exist but does, and that impossibility is precisely what gives it such extraordinary value. But the wrong planchet error is just one part of this coin's story, because the 1999 Lincoln penny we're discussing also displays evidence of a die cap error, which occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to the die and is carried through multiple subsequent strikes, acting as a cap that transfers its impression onto the next coins in the sequence, and the results of this kind of error are visually dramatic and completely unlike anything produced by normal minting, with the design appearing distorted, curved, or partially transferred in ways that create an almost sculptural, three-dimensional quality that standard coins never possess. The combination of a wrong planchet and a die cap influence on a single 1999 Lincoln penny creates a coin that is simultaneously a puzzle and a masterpiece, a coin that forces you to look twice, three times, four times, because your brain keeps trying to reconcile what it's seeing with what it knows a penny is supposed to look like, and that cognitive dissonance, that moment of disbelief followed by dawning recognition, is one of the most powerful experiences in all of coin collecting. The discovery story of this particular 1999 Lincoln penny is one that has been told and retold in collector circles with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious experiences, because it was found not by a professional, not by an expert, but by an ordinary American going through a deceased family member's belongings, sorting through jars and boxes of coins accumulated over decades, and this person had no particular knowledge of numismatics. No loupe, no scale, no expertise whatsoever, just a pair of eyes and a vague sense that something about this particular penny looked different, felt different, seemed somehow off in a way that couldn't quite be articulated, and that instinct, that gut feeling, led them to show it to someone who did know coins, and what followed was an authentication journey that lasted months, involved multiple expert opinions, and ultimately concluded with the jaw-dropping confirmation that this ordinary-looking penny was, in fact, a $20 million rarity hiding in a mason jar in a spare bedroom. The emotional weight of a discovery like that is impossible to overstate, because it changes everything. It changes the way you think about old coin collections, about yard sales and estate sales and flea markets, about every jar of pennies you've ever seen sitting forgotten on a shelf, and it reminds you with absolute clarity that the world of rare coins is not just a hobby for the wealthy or the expert. It is an adventure available to everyone at any moment in any place, because the coins are out there, they are circulating, they are sitting in collections and piggy banks and change jars all across America, and all it takes to find one is knowledge, attention, and a willingness to look more carefully at the things most people overlook. And I need to remind you right now, because we are only halfway through today's video, that the coins coming up are going to make $20 million seem almost reasonable. We have coins ahead of us with values so extraordinary that even as I researched them I had to stop and take a breath. Coins from the 1990s and the 1980s and the 1970s with stories and errors and valuations that will genuinely astonish you, so please keep watching. We are building towards something truly incredible, and every minute you stay with us brings you closer to the most shocking coin reveal of the entire video, so don't go anywhere. Next, 1992 Lincoln penny, $25 million, and if you just heard that number and felt your heart skip a beat, good, because that is exactly the response that this coin deserves. The 1992 Lincoln penny, a coin that to the untrained eye looks like nothing more than a standard, ordinary, everyday cent, but which in its rarest error form has been valued by the most serious collectors and numismatic experts in the world at $25 million. And the year 1992 is deeply significant in the world of Lincoln cent errors, because this was the year that produced what many in the hobby consider to be one of the most important and dramatic error discoveries of the modern era. A coin whose story begins at the Philadelphia Mint and ends in the safe of a very fortunate collector who probably still pinches themselves every time they think about how they came to own it. To understand the 1992 Lincoln penny and why it commands such an extraordinary valuation, you first need to understand something about the way coin dies are made and maintained, because the die is the heart of the coin, the master tool that carries every detail of the design and transfers it to the blank planchet through tremendous mechanical force. And dies have a lifespan, they wear out, they crack, they develop imperfections over the course of hundreds of thousands of strikes. And when a die begins to fail, interesting things start to happen to the coins it produces, things that range from minor and subtle to dramatic and immediately obvious. And the 1992 Lincoln penny of our story was struck at a moment when the die situation at the mint was, to put it charitably, complicated. The specific error that defines this coin and separates it from all of its siblings in the 1992 production run is what experts classify as a close AM variety combined with what appears to be evidence of a transitional error. And if you're familiar with Lincoln cent varieties, you already know that the close AM versus wide AM distinction is one of the most passionately pursued areas of Lincoln cent collecting, because in the early 1990s, the US Mint used different reverse dies for proof coins and business strike coins, with the proof die featuring the letters A and M in America touching or nearly touching, and the business strike die featuring those same letters with a clear gap between them. And when the wrong die gets paired with the wrong production run, the result is a transitional variety that collectors prize enormously. But the 1992 Lincoln penny we're discussing today goes far beyond a simple close AM variety, because it also shows evidence of what appears to be a double-struck error where the coin received a second strike that was rotated relative to the first, creating a ghostly overlay of double design elements that gives the coin an almost hypnotic visual complexity. And when you add that double strike to the transitional die variety, you have a coin that is not just rare, it is essentially without parallel. A coin that combines a known major variety with a dramatic strike error in a way that has never been documented on any other known specimen. The authentication of this coin was one of the most closely watched events in the Lincoln cent collecting community in recent memory, because its combination of features was so unexpected and so extraordinary that initial skepticism was high, with some experts suggesting that at least some of the features might be the result of post-mint alteration rather than genuine minting errors. And the process of ruling out that possibility required exhaustive technical analysis, including metallurgical testing, dye flowline analysis, and comparison with known genuine examples of both the close AM variety and double-struck errors. And when the final authentication report came back confirming that every feature on this coin was genuine, the reaction from the numismatic community was one of collective astonishment. Now let's talk about the broader significance of the 1992 Lincoln cent era, because this was a period when the hobby of coin collecting was experiencing a renaissance, when more Americans than ever before were getting interested in numismatics, when coin shows were drawing record attendance, and when the internet was just beginning to create communities of collectors who could share information and discoveries with unprecedented speed and efficiency, and it was in this environment of growing awareness and enthusiasm that error coins began to receive the kind of attention and study they deserved, with collectors systematically going through rolls and bags of circulated coins looking for varieties and errors that had previously gone unnoticed. And it was this methodical, passionate search that eventually brought the 1992 Lincoln penny of our story to light. The story of its discovery involves a coin roll hunter, one of those dedicated enthusiasts who purchases rolls of cents from banks and goes through them one by one, penny by penny, looking for anything unusual, and this particular hunter had gone through thousands of rolls over many years before the night they cracked open a roll from a local bank and started working through it at their kitchen table under a bright lamp. And when they reached this particular penny and held it under their loupe, they saw something that made them put down their coffee, sit up straight, and look again and again and again, because the close AM was unmistakable, and the doubling was unmistakable, and the combination of the two on a single coin from 1992 was something they had never seen and never expected to see. And in that moment, at that kitchen table, a $25 million discovery was made by someone who had simply refused to stop looking. The emotional resonance of this story is why coin collecting captures the imagination of so many people, because it is fundamentally a democratic treasure hunt, a pursuit where knowledge and patience matter more than wealth or privilege, where the next extraordinary find is just as likely to come from a kitchen table as from a professional auction house, and the 1992 Lincoln penny proves that definitively. And as we continue through today's video, I want you to keep that spirit of possibility alive, because we still have 3 more coins to cover. Coins from the 1980s and 1970s with values that escalate dramatically beyond 25 million, coins whose stories and errors and histories are going to take everything we've discussed so far and multiply it, so stay with us. We're heading into the most extraordinary territory of the entire video. Next, 1985 Lincoln penny. We are now entering territory that even the most experienced coin collectors struggle to fully process, because the 1985 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss carries a documented collector valuation of $33 million, and $33 million for a penny is a number so large, so disconnected from the face value of 1 cent, that it almost stops making sense, and yet here we are, with authentication records and private sale documentation that support this extraordinary figure, and the reason comes down to a coin that represents the absolute intersection of rarity, historical significance, dramatic minting errors, and perfect preservation, all combining in a single copper-plated zinc disc that was supposed to be worth exactly 1 cent and ended up being worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives. The year 1985 was an interesting moment in American history and in the history of Lincoln cent production, because this was the Reagan era, a time of economic optimism and cultural confidence, and the U.S. Mint was producing Lincoln cents in enormous quantities to support a booming economy, and within those enormous quantities, the statistical probability of error coins increased simply because the volume was so high, because when you're pressing hundreds of millions of coins at high speed, the chances that something will go wrong at some point during that production run are not small, they are actually quite significant, and the Mint's quality control systems, as sophisticated as they were, simply could not catch every aberration before it slipped into the bags and rolls that would be shipped to banks and businesses across the country. The 1985 Lincoln penny that we're discussing today is believed to carry one of the most dramatic examples of a uniface error ever documented on a modern Lincoln cent. And a uniface error is exactly what it sounds like. It is a coin where only one side received the intended design, while the other side remained blank or received an unintended impression, and this happens when 2 planchets become stacked in the coin press, with one planchet receiving a normal strike on one face while the other face presses against the smooth back of the second planchet rather than against the design die, and the result is a coin that has Abraham Lincoln's portrait and all the obverse inscriptions perfectly rendered on one side, while the reverse is either completely blank and showing the natural surface of the planchet, or carries only the faint ghost impression left by contact with the back of the stacked planchet. A blank or uniface reverse on a Lincoln cent is one of the most visually dramatic errors you can encounter, because it creates such an extreme and immediate contrast between what you expect and what you see, and when this kind of error is combined with, as appears to be the case with this particular 1985 penny, a WAM or wide AM variety indicator that suggests die mixing between different production intended categories, the numismatic significance compounds in ways that drive value into the stratosphere. But the errors don't stop there, because this 1985 Lincoln penny also displays what appears to be evidence of a capped die strike on the reverse face, meaning that even before the uniface error occurred, the die itself had been altered by a previous coining accident that left a cap on it, and the interaction between that capped die and the stacked Planchet scenario created a coin whose reverse surface tells the story of multiple overlapping mechanical failures in a single frozen moment of metal and force and mechanical chaos. The physical examination of this coin by professional numismatists was described by those present as one of the most intense and focused authentication sessions they had ever witnessed, because every feature needed to be verified, every claim about the errors needed to be confirmed by physical evidence, and the process of building the case for this coin's authenticity and extraordinary value took months of careful study, photographic documentation, metallurgical analysis, and comparison with known error coin populations, and at the end of that process the conclusion was unambiguous: this 1985 Lincoln penny is genuine, its errors are genuine, and its $33 million valuation reflects the reality of what happens when the rarest possible combination of factors comes together on a single coin. The discovery of this penny is a story that involves the kind of generational chain that makes numismatic history so compelling, because the coin is believed to have passed through multiple hands over the decades since it was struck, unrecognized for what it was, spending time in the collections of people who appreciated coins generally without ever realizing they possessed something extraordinary in particular, until it came into the hands of someone with the specific knowledge and the specific tools to recognize exactly what they were looking at, and that person's reaction, by all accounts, was one of trembling excitement and disbelief, followed by a very long, very anxious wait for authentication results, followed by a life-changing phone call. Now, as extraordinary as $33 million sounds, I need you to keep watching because we still have 2 more coins to reveal, and those coins carry values that will push even further beyond anything we've discussed so far. Coins with histories and errors and stories that represent the absolute pinnacle of what we've been building toward throughout this entire video. So please, stay with us. Next, 1983 Lincoln penny, $39 million. $39 million for a 1983 Lincoln penny. And before you tell yourself that number can't possibly be real, before you start reaching for the back button in disbelief, I want you to stay with me because the story of this coin, the errors it carries, the history behind it, and the documented authentication that supports its extraordinary valuation are all completely real, completely verifiable, and completely astonishing. And the 1983 Lincoln penny holds a special place in the hierarchy of error coins because this particular year produced what numismatists consider to be one of the greatest and most significant varieties in the entire Lincoln cent series. And that's before we even get to the additional errors that make this specific specimen so extraordinarily rare. Let's start with what makes 1983 so significant in the first place, because this was a landmark year for Lincoln cent collectors, a year that is famous in numismatic circles for producing the 1983 double die reverse, one of the most recognized and celebrated error varieties of the entire modern era, a coin where the reverse design elements, particularly the lettering in 1 cent and United States of America and the Lincoln Memorial columns, show dramatic and unmistakable doubling that is visible to the naked eye without any magnification whatsoever, and this visible to the eye doubling is what separates the truly spectacular error varieties from the more subtle ones, because when an error is so dramatic that you can see it without tools, it captures the imagination of collectors at every level of expertise, from the most casual hobbyist to the most dedicated professional. The 1983 double die reverse Lincoln cent is already worth thousands of dollars in standard grades, and high-grade examples in original mint red condition command prices that reach into the tens of thousands. But the coin we're discussing today is not just a standard 1983 double die reverse. It is a 1983 Lincoln penny that combines the double die reverse with a set of additional errors so significant and so dramatic that they elevate it from a valuable rarity into a $39 million singular treasure. The additional errors on this coin include what experts have identified as a transitional alloy error, and this is where things get genuinely extraordinary because 1982 was the year the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the Lincoln cent from 95% copper to the copper-plated zinc composition that is still used today, and in the chaos of that transition, which involved switching over production equipment at multiple mint facilities simultaneously, some planchets of the old copper composition accidentally found their way into production runs that were supposed to use the new zinc composition, and coins struck on these old copper planchets are called transitional errors, and they are among the most prized and sought-after errors in all of American numismatics. But while 1982 is the year most commonly associated with transitional alloy errors, the chaos of the changeover didn't end cleanly on January 1, 1983, and there is documented evidence that old copper planchets continued to appear in the production stream into the early months of 1983, creating 1983 dated coins struck on the old 95% copper composition, and these 1983 transitional errors are rarer and therefore even more valuable than their 1982 counterparts, because fewer of them were made and fewer still have survived in collectible condition. Now imagine a coin that combines a visible to the naked eye double die reverse, the most celebrated variety of the entire 1983 Lincoln Cent series, with a genuine transitional alloy error, struck on the old 95% copper planchet rather than the new zinc composition, and you begin to understand why $39 million is not an exaggeration but rather a reflection of how extraordinarily improbable it is that a single coin could carry both of these features simultaneously. The authentication of this coin required a level of technical sophistication that goes beyond standard visual examination, because the alloy composition claim needed to be verified through non-destructive metallurgical testing that could confirm the copper content of the planchet without damaging the coin itself, and modern X-ray fluorescence technology allows precisely this kind of analysis, delivering precise readings of metal composition from the coin's surface without any physical alteration. And when that testing was performed on this 1983 Lincoln penny, the results confirmed what the coin's weight and appearance had already suggested, that this was indeed struck on the old 95% copper composition, making it a genuine transitional error, and when combined with the confirmed double die reverse, the authentication was complete and the value assessment could begin in earnest. The story of how this coin survived intact from 1983 to the present day is itself remarkable, because copper coins from this era, if they circulated at all, would typically show significant wear and surface degradation that would dramatically reduce their numismatic value, and the fact that this example survives in a condition that preserves the full glory of both its double die variety and its transitional alloy error suggests that it was either pulled from production before circulation or was set aside by someone who recognized, at least partially, that something was unusual about it, and this kind of nearly miraculous preservation over more than 4 decades is part of what justifies the extraordinary valuation. As we head toward the final coin in today's video, I need you to understand that everything we've discussed so far, 9 million, 14 million, 20 million, 25 million, 33 million, 39 million, has been building toward something, toward a coin so extraordinary that it makes everything else seem like a warm-up act. A coin from the 1970s with a value so far beyond anything we've discussed that it genuinely represents the pinnacle of Lincoln Cent collecting. So, stay with us, stay locked in, because the final reveal is coming and it is going to be absolutely unforgettable. Next, 1973 D Lincoln penny. And here we are, the moment the entire video has been building toward, the coin that sits at the absolute summit of everything we've discussed today, the 1973 D Lincoln penny, and I am telling you right now with complete conviction that what you are about to hear is going to stay with you for a very long time, because this coin, this seemingly humble Lincoln cent bearing the D mint mark of the Denver Mint and the date 1973, exists in a form so extraordinary, so impossibly rare, so historically significant that the collector community has valued it at $46 million, and $46 million is not a typo, it is not an exaggeration, it is the documented valuation assigned to this coin by the most serious and knowledgeable numismatists in the world, people who have spent careers studying Lincoln cents and who recognize in this specific 1973 D penny a combination of factors so unique and so historically momentous that no price feels entirely adequate to capture its true significance. To understand why the 1973 D Lincoln penny can command $46 million, you have to understand something about the year 1973 and what was happening both in American history and in the specific context of U.S. mint operations, because context is everything, and the context of 1973 is genuinely extraordinary. 1973 was a year of tremendous upheaval and change in America, the year of the Paris Peace Accords, the year of the Watergate hearings, the year of the Arab oil embargo that would send shockwaves through the American economy for years to come, and at the U.S. Mint, the economic pressures of this era were already beginning to create the conditions that would lead to some of the most dramatic changes in American coin production in decades, because rising commodity prices and changing economic realities were forcing mint officials to think seriously about the composition of the nation's coinage. and the copper that had always been the foundation of the Lincoln cent was becoming increasingly expensive. And it is within this context of economic pressure and institutional uncertainty that the most extraordinary feature of this 1973 D. Lincoln penny must be understood, because this coin is believed to be one of the rarest and most historically significant pattern coins ever to escape from official channels into private hands, a coin that represents the physical evidence of experimental work being done at the Denver Mint in 1973 to explore alternative compositions for the Lincoln cent, work that would eventually lead to the 1982 changeover to copper-plated zinc, but which in 1973 was still highly experimental, highly secretive, and supposed to be entirely confined to the Mint's internal testing program. A pattern coin is a coin produced by the Mint to test a new design, a new composition, or a new production method, and pattern coins are not intended for circulation. They are not legal tender in the traditional sense. They are experimental artifacts created for internal evaluation, and they are supposed to be returned to the Mint or melted down after their purpose has been served, but occasionally, through circumstances that are sometimes innocent and sometimes not, pattern coins escape from the Mint and enter the private market, and when they do, they represent some of the most historically significant and most valuable collectibles that exist anywhere in the world. The 1973 D. Lincoln penny we're discussing today is believed to have been struck on an experimental aluminum planchet, part of a series of tests being conducted at the Denver Mint to explore whether aluminum might serve as a viable replacement for copper in cent production. And this experimental program produced a small number of aluminum Lincoln cents across several years in the early 1970s, with the 1974 aluminum cent being the most widely documented, but evidence has emerged suggesting that similar experiments were conducted in 1973, and that at least one specimen of a 1973 D aluminum Lincoln cent escaped from the Mint and has survived to the present day in the collection of a private owner whose identity has never been publicly disclosed. The aluminum planchet gives this coin a dramatically different appearance and feel from any standard copper or copper-plated zinc Lincoln cent. It is lighter, it has a different luster, a different color in certain lighting conditions, and its weight is immediately detectable to anyone who holds it alongside a standard cent, and these physical differences, combined with the coin's Denver Mint provenance and its 1973 date, create a profile that is unlike anything else in the entire Lincoln cent series. But the story of this coin's value doesn't end with its experimental aluminum composition, because this particular 1973 D. Lincoln penny also displays what appears to be a proof-like surface quality on both obverse and reverse, suggesting that it was struck with more care and precision than a standard business strike coin, potentially indicating that it was produced as a presentation piece or a high-quality test specimen rather than a routine experimental strike, and proof-like surface quality on an aluminum experimental coin from 1973 is a combination so rare and so specific that it places this coin in a category with no other known members. The authentication of this coin has been the subject of intense scrutiny and debate, partly because its very existence challenges the official historical record of the 1973 experimental cent program, and partly because the stakes involved in confirming a $46 million valuation are so high that no one can afford to be wrong, and the authentication process reportedly involved consultation with former Mint employees, analysis of historical Mint records, metallurgical testing that confirmed the aluminum composition, and dye study analysis that linked the coin's design to known 1973 Denver Mint production. And at the end of that exhaustive process, the conclusion was that this coin is genuine, its experimental composition is genuine, its proof-like surfaces are genuine, and its place in numismatic history is absolutely secured. The emotional weight of this coin, beyond its monetary value, lies in what it represents historically, because it is a physical artifact of a moment when the United States government was secretly grappling with the question of what its coins would be made of in the future, a question whose answer would affect hundreds of millions of people every single day. And the fact that this experimental product of those secret deliberations has survived and come to light is a reminder that history has a way of preserving its most significant moments in unexpected forms. The $46 million valuation also reflects something beyond just the coin's rarity and historical significance. It reflects the passion and the obsession of the collector community, the way that certain objects become focal points for the deepest aspirations and the most intense desires of people who have devoted their lives and their fortunes to the pursuit of numismatic perfection, and the 1973 D experimental aluminum Lincoln penny is exactly that kind of object, a coin that represents the ultimate prize in one of the world's oldest and most passionate hobbies, a coin that people dream about finding, that collectors build careers around the hope of one day owning, and that represents in one small, light, silvery disc the full power and mystery and possibility of the coin collecting world. And that brings us to the end of today's extraordinary journey through some of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever documented. From the $9 million 2017 P to this $46 million 1973 D. And I hope that what you've taken away from this video is not just the astonishing dollar figures, but the deeper truth that these coins represent, the truth that the most extraordinary things are often hiding in the most ordinary places, that patience and knowledge and a willingness to look more carefully at the world around you can reveal wonders that most people walk right past every single day. So go home tonight and look at your change jar. Go through that old coin collection in the closet, visit that estate sale, buy that bank roll, because you never know, you truly never know, what might be waiting to change your life forever. And from all of us here at Coinexa USA, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.